The Whites had two children, William Lindsay, born in 1900, and a daughter, Mary, born in 1904.
Mary White would have had a very unusual childhood in the Midwest. She was, like her brother, very well read, very intelligent, but unlike her brother, she was very outspoken, I think somewhat bossy.
When Mary visited the Gazette, White would ask her for a kiss, but she would always refuse. Mary was simply too strong and independent.
As she grew older, would even get in fights with boys. In high school, she saw the principal's office more often than a lot of students at Emporia High. I think her father enjoyed her. She had a sense of humor like his. Besides reading, she enjoyed drawing, especially as she got older. A lot of her drawings are political in nature or humorous in nature. She likes to kind of poke fun at people a little bit. She kind of does in her drawings what her father did in his editorials. She loved reading, but most of all, she loved horseback riding.
She had her own car, like a jitney, a cab. Anybody who was around got a ride with her. She was a very kind of free-spirited but very idealistic young woman.
White's novel, In the Heart of a Fool, was adapted into a silent film in 1920. White and Mary attended a screening, but were disappointed with the film. He shared the experience in a letter to Sally.
Mary White sat by me during the ordeal and chuckled and giggled and made the funniest running comment you ever heard. For instance, "Father, why do you take their money? They haven't used your story." Mary was deliriously hilarious about it. She is a perfect dear. She knew I was plagued to death, and she cheered me up. The picture is a mess.
Bill attended Harvard, and Mary was studying hard to attend Wellesley. Mary had found a new interest in her studies. White wrote to Edna Ferber.
"She is so rotten good that I'm always afraid that when she takes off her corset cover, her wings will sprout and she'll fly away."
Come on in here for a second. We can decide where to meet.
Mary.
Come on.
Mary. Maybe they should put white only on the door.
Among her friends at Emporia High were some of the few black girls that attended that school. And it became apparent to her, she hadn't even thought about the fact, that these girls had nowhere to go between classes. This was something that Mary started working for, was a lounge that was dedicated to, as she called them, it was the language of the day, colored girls. And her father and mother made that happen. So on May 10th, 1921, when Mary had another accident with her horse, Will was away in the East on a book tour. And Sally sent him a telegram saying Mary has had another one of her accidents and he didn't need to return home. And then she talked about the house, because the house was being remodeled at that time, and that the house is looking grand, everything's going well. Well, within a few hours, that changed. And then there became a series of telegrams, each one more dire.
White took a train and rushed home to Emporia. While changing trains in Chicago, White was surprised to be met by his friends, Harold Ickes and Edna Ferber. They told him that Mary had died.
The great tragedy of William Allen White's life and of Sally White's life was that she died too young. And she was a horse rider, and people talked about, who visited Emporia would see this girl, riding through the streets on a horse, and later on would find out that was Mary White.
The Associated Press reports, carrying the news of Mary White's death, declared that it came as the result of a fall from a horse. How she would have hooted at that. She never fell from a horse in her life. Horses have fallen on her and with her. "I'm always trying to hold him in my lap," she used to say. She was proud of a few things, and one of them was that she could ride anything that had 4 legs and hair.
And about how she liked to drive, and that she was picking up people and driving them around, and just how proud he was of her as a free spirit.
For she used the car as a jitney bus. It was her social life. She never had a party in all her nearly 17 years, wouldn't have one. But she never drove a block in her life that she didn't begin to fill the car with pickups. Everybody rode with Mary White. White and black, old and young. She liked nothing better than to fill the car with long-legged high school boys and an occasional girl and parade downtown. She never had a date, nor went to a dance, except once with her brother Bill, and the boy proposition didn't interest her, yet. But young people, great spring-breaking, varnish-cracking, fender-bending, door-sagging carloads of kids, gave her great pleasure.
You know, the whole town was devastated. But after the funeral, White went to the Emporia office and wrote what he always did for citizens of all kinds in Emporia. That was his job, was to write their obituary. And he said, you know, people expected him to. He wanted to do this. And how he did it so soon after the funeral, I still don't understand. But he wrote, I can't even talk about it without crying. He wrote something that was so powerful and so beautiful as a tribute to her and as a tribute to a certain kind of young womanhood that she embodied for him, of a kind of purity and sassiness and caring and just so full of life and embracing everything in her community, that it was immediately recognized as a classic.
Her humor was a continual bubble of joy. She seemed to think in hyperbole and metaphor. She was mischievous without malice, as full of faults as an old shoe. No angel was Mary White, but an easy girl to live with, for she never nursed a grouch 5 minutes in her life.
I could just feel his restraint. I could just feel his heartbreak. The understatement is so powerful in that piece. That's why it's so moving.
This is a teenager in a high school. My goodness, think about deaths in high school today. And whole schools rally around and have memorial services and grief counselors. So I think what he did would absolutely happen today, and that same kind of reaction would be positively received in a community.
He was so direct and so unornamented in his writing and so unsentimental about the thing he should have been most sentimental about. And I was always impressed that you can sort of feel the emotion without letting it overwhelm, you know, what you have to say.
A rift in the clouds in a gray day threw a shaft of sunlight upon her coffin as her nervous, energetic little body sank to its last sleep. But the soul of her, the glowing, gorgeous, fervent soul of her, surely was flaming in eager joy upon some other dawn.
It broke their hearts. I don't think really in a real sense they ever really recovered from that. It was devastating.
In some ways, William Allen White had a career that blossomed after the death of Mary. And I think part of it was that was how he could best, he wrote the editorial, he put her to bed, and then he went on with his life. But I do think his run for governor was very much informed by Mary. What would Mary want me to do?